Have you ever really stopped to think about how an AI like ChatGPT actually works? I mean, how it learns? It's not some kind of magic. It's actually a really fascinating story. It's a story about how an AI goes from knowing a little bit about everything to becoming a genuine, bona fide expert. So let's dive in and break down how it all happens. So this is the big question, right? How does an AI start out as a jack of all trades and then somehow become a master of one specific thing? It definitely feels like it should be more complicated, but the answer is actually a surprisingly straightforward two-step process. You know, the easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like a two-act play. Seriously. In Act 1, we create the Generalist, an AI with this massive library of world knowledge. Then in Act 2, we take that Generalist and forge it into a Specialist. And these two acts have official names: Pretraining and Fine-Tuning. Okay, so let's get into Act 1, creating the Generalist. This is all about the power of what we call pre-training. This is where the AI builds its fundamental understanding of, well, just about everything. The whole goal here is breadth, not depth. So pre-training is basically this initial brute force learning phase. If you want to build a generalist, you have to feed it a huge library of human knowledge. This is how it learns grammar, facts about history, scientific concepts, and, all the little subtle ways we actually talk to each other. It's not just memorizing things, it's learning the deep patterns of language itself. And when I say huge, I mean the scale of the data is it's mind-boggling. To create something like GPT-3, they fed it a diet that was mostly a giant slice of the internet, plus massive digital libraries of books and the entirety of Wikipedia. It's basically the equivalent of telling it to read the entire web. And to put a number on that, GPT-3 was trained on roughly 300 billion words. Just try to imagine reading that much in your lifetime. It's this insane volume of text that gives the model that broad, general knowledge base to start with. As you can probably guess, all of that learning does not come cheap. The cost for the computing power just to pre-train one model like GPT-3 was an estimated $4.6 million. And that is why creating these big foundational models is usually left to a handful of major tech companies. But this is where the story gets really interesting. There's a surprise twist. Because in the middle of all this massive brute force training, researchers discovered something they totally weren't looking for. And it was something that would change AI forever. Believe it or not, the original task for these incredibly complex models was super, super simple. All they were trained to do was word completion. You give it a phrase like, "the lion is in theme," and the model's only job was to predict the most likely next word, like jungle. That's it. So, as the researchers just watched the model get better and better at this simple task, they noticed something incredible happening. And this quote from OpenAI really captures their shock. The model was starting to develop skills it was never, ever taught. Just by learning to predict the next word billions of times, it was somehow learning to reason. And then, all of a sudden, this single model that was only trained to predict words could now do things that used to require dozens of separate, specialized AIs. It could translate languages, it could summarize long articles, answer really complex questions, all without being specifically trained on any of them. These emergent powers, as they're called, were a total game changer. But, being a generalist isn't always good enough. Sometimes you need a true expert. So let's move on to Act 2, where we see how this powerful, all-knowing model gets transformed into a focused specialist. And this process is called fine-tuning. So this is where the whole process pivots. See, pre-training uses the entire messy, chaotic internet, what we call unlabeled data, to build that broad knowledge. But for fine-tuning, you use a much smaller, carefully curated data set. You can think of it like a stack of perfect examples, or labeled data, that teaches the AI a very specific skill. This is exactly how you turn that generalist into a specialist. And this is not just some theory. I mean, major companies all over the world are using fine-tuning right now to build custom AI tools. And these tools can solve very specific problems way better than any general-purpose model ever could. So for example, take the AI tool called Harvey. It's built for lawyers. A general model knows a little bit about the law, sure, but Harvey was fine-tuned on a massive library of actual legal case history. That gives it the deep, specific expertise an attorney actually needs to do their job. Or look at JP Morgan. They developed their own AI. Why? Well, because their financial analysis depends on decades of their own private proprietary data. Fine-tuning lets them securely train a model on all that internal information, creating a tool that's perfectly tailor-made for their analysts. And fine-tuning isn't just for private data. It's also absolutely critical for specialized language. SK Telecom, for instance, needed a chatbot that understood all the telecom jargon, but in Korean. A general model would just struggle with that level of nuance. So, by fine-tuning it on their own customer service calls, they created a bot that really, truly understood its users. And you can see that this fine-tuning delivered real, measurable results. The specialized model became over 30% better at summarizing conversations and figuring out what a customer actually wanted. For any business, that kind of performance boost is absolutely huge. Okay, so let's pull all of this together. We're going to summarize this whole creation story into one simple, clear blueprint. So here it is, the blueprint. It all starts with step 1, gathering just tons and tons of public data. Step 2 is using that data to pre-train a knowledgeable generalist. But the real magic, the part that makes it special, is step 3, fine-tuning that model with specific expert data. That's the step that transforms it from a generalist into a specialist tool that's ready to be deployed for one specific purpose. And that brings us to the end of our story. So the next time you use an AI, it doesn't matter if it's a chatbot, a writing assistant, or even a search engine. Just ask yourself this one simple question. Are you dealing with the broad knowledge of a generalist, or are you talking to a highly trained, focused specialist? Because understanding that difference, that's the key to understanding the two lives of an